Yeah, I mean, we both live in the U.S., right? My home's still in San Francisco, and just an observation I had, and I say this as somebody who's, I'm American, but I grew up in Canada, and now living in the U.S., spending almost equal amounts of time sort of in both the U.S. and Canada. My view is just like life in Canada much better than in the U.S. But the difference in U.S. is that U.S. is a first world country and a third world country in the same place. I actually legitimately mean that because this broad income inequality, I actually think in the US, it's a feature, it's not a bug. I'll say this is because if you think you want to be an entrepreneur, whether it's in Hollywood, whether it's in tech, in any business, in marketing, any fashion, the US still pulls a lot of this talent. This is a place you go to compete. You don't go there for a great life. You go there to compete to make money. That's a decision I made. I had the decision to stay in Canada, have a pretty good life. Middle class life is nice. I would argue a lot of the folks I grew up with in Canada have a way better life in certain ways than I do, right? But for me, that wasn't what I was satisfied with. I don't want like a normal, okay life. I want a great life, right? But that means you have to sort of like pay the price for that. That means working 80 to 100-hour work weeks. That means dealing with the third world healthcare thing, dealing with like crap, sort of like diets and just like, they're just the things that surround you with crime, right? Like it's a real thing in the US that's less of an issue, I would argue, in Canada. But it's just like, well, you take the good with the bad, right? There's also just a lot more opportunity in the US in general still.
I love that framework. I think it's precisely what brought me to America as well. And it's the whole how to get rich Naval thing, 100% in terms of like that immigrant mentality because, which, I certainly think he took it from Charlie Munger where he talks about freedom overall. And then capital is just a way for you to just have the ability to set your own schedule and play the games with whom you want to play with, who you want to play games with. So the U.S. is the only country where my story would have been possible. I think same true. Like, I mean, where else could we have gone and become like if I wanted to nowhere else, right? So this is what makes this country incredible. But in my opinion, the U.S. is only awesome if you want to be an entrepreneur. I'm not sure if I want to have a career here.
No way. Right? Brutal. It's
no
a
sense.
brutal place.
It's terrible. One thing that I've always appreciated about the U.S. is the social mobility. You do have this inequality, but if there's a country with a system that would reward you for competence and ability to output something unique that others are interested in, is the U.S. I don't think that there's still like not a single.
I would say if you're Chinese, I think China is one of those places. I think that's it. I'm not sure there's a lot of other places.
Yes, but if you are Chinese, yes.
Yeah, if you're Chinese, I don't necessarily think anybody else can do that. I think if you're Chinese.
Yeah, I thought about moving to China when I was like leaving San Francisco for 5 minutes because I realized that if for whatever reason I do something incorrect there or I say something on the record that I'm not supposed to say, they will disappear with me, and then I'm not interested in that, Like, and no one is gonna fucking come to like rescue me, and even if they do, they'll maybe just find my body. So
China's a different beast, right? Like I think in some ways it's actually way more capitalist than the U.S., but very different rules. And the question that I think everyone needs to ask yourself is like, where's your edge? And I'm like, if I was to go to China, like I've zero edge, right? Like I've zero edge. My Chinese is okay. I can't read. Yeah, I just couldn't. U.S. was the only place for me. I look back on it. Even if I was to move to U.S. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even if I was a 22-year-old now, growing up in Canada, I would still go to the U.S. There's no question. There's nowhere else. In my opinion.
Yeah. Well, that's why I ended up coming to Miami, because it was the only city that would fit everything I was looking for within the United States.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't interested in leaving the country.